Hey guys, it's Alex. I'm sure you're probably getting tired of hearing me talk about nonfiction November by now, but it's not going to stop, so get used to it. Today I have for you my nonfiction November TBR, which includes the nonfiction books I'm reading, but also the non-nonfiction books I'm reading. So I guess we could just go ahead and call those fiction. But as I mentioned in my announcement video, nonfiction November isn't about trying to get you to read all nonfiction books in November. I think the minimum we sort of set as a goal was 4, but really no one's gonna kick you out if you just want to read 2. Feel free to join us. But I've sort of split my books in half. I have 8 nonfiction books that I would like to get through, although several of them I don't plan to finish and I will explain why. But I also have 6 fiction books that I plan on reading, and I picked these fiction books because I feel like all of them are rather quick reads that I could read in probably a day or less than a day for most of them. And those are the kind of books I like to read when I'm reading a lot of heavier books. If I'm reading a lot of heavy books, I like to split them up with some light books. That way it keeps me from getting too exhausted in my reading. So I'm going to start with the nonfiction books, since that is the point of this TBR, and then we will end with the fiction books. So if you like to just hear about the fiction books I'm reading, feel free to skip towards the end. There are 16 challenges for nonfiction November, and I didn't intentionally choose books to go along with the challenges except for one, but I did wind up hitting most of the challenges anyway, so I will go through those as well. The first book I have to talk about is Without You There Is No Us by Suki Kim. If you recognize this book, it's because it was on my August Newts TBR as well, and I just never got to it. But it is nonfiction, so hopefully I'll get to it in November. This book satisfies the read a memoir or biography challenge, as well as the read a book about a different culture than your own, or a country you've never been to. This book is set in North Korea, which obviously I've never been to, and it is a memoir of a teacher who went undercover and spent time there. It sounds really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. I'm kind of bummed that I haven't gotten to it yet, but hopefully November will be the perfect time for me to pick this up. The next book I have is The Tough Guide to Fantasyland by... This book satisfies the challenge to read a book to help you develop a talent or skill. This is sort of a funny, humorous approach to some of the cliches that are often abundant in fantasy books. I got this for a fantasy lit course that I took in college, but this was one of the books that I just never read, and I don't think it was really important for the class to read it. But it does seem really interesting, and as someone who is sort of a fantasy newbie, I feel like it'll be really helpful for both reading and writing fantasy, and also it's just supposed to be really funny. The next book is Life's Dominion, an argument about abortion, euthanasia, and individual freedom by Ronald Dworkin. This satisfies the challenge to read a book that makes you think deep thoughts and read a book about the mind. I feel like it works for both of those because it is about the argument around abortion and euthanasia and sort of individual liberties and at what point do you have a right to life, and what does your right to life sort of extend to? I DNF'd this book a couple of years ago. I was really enjoying some of it, and it had some really interesting insights, but it wound up being really heavily trying to convert people to believe the same way he believed, and it was sort of like unappealing to read, kind of, but I do want to get back to it, and I do agree with what he's saying. I don't think there was anything that I disagreed with that he said thus far, but it was still kind of unappealing to feel him trying to convert me. But I am hoping to get a lot out of this book. I think I will learn a lot from it, and it does seem very, very interesting, if nothing else. Next I have In the Garden of Beasts by Erik Larson. This is a book that I also DNF'd a few years ago. Not intentionally, I was really, really enjoying it, but it was due back at the library and I was sort of in a reading slump, so I didn't immediately pick it back up, and then I wound up buying my own copy, so I'm really excited to have it. This satisfies the challenge for read a book with a map in it, because at the beginning, it does have a map of the Tiergarten and a map of Berlin. I don't really look at these maps, but it does have them, so it counts. This is about the American ambassador and his family to Germany in the 1930s, but before he was recalled back to the US and basically war was declared. It was really interesting, really good. I do enjoy Erik Larson's writing style, but like I said before, it was just due back at the library. But I'm really looking forward to getting back to this book because it was really amazing. Next I have Into Thin Air by Krakauer. This doesn't satisfy any challenges, I just really want to read it. It's about the disastrous Mount Everest climb in '96, where I think like 6 people died, and John Krakauer was among the people who survived, and it just seems like a really interesting, important story that I really don't know much about it other than a lot of people died on the mission. And I'm really looking forward to it because I've really enjoyed John Krakauer's writing before. Next I have Killed, Great Journalism Too Hot to Print, edited by David Wallis. This satisfies read a book with no pictures and read a book written by a journalist. This is written by several journalists, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. This is one that I don't really plan to finish. It is a collection of different stories, and there's commentary to go with each story. So I could potentially really end up enjoying it and just devouring the whole thing very quickly, but this could also be a book that I just read very slowly over the course of weeks or months. It's not one that I really care to push myself to finish, just for the sake of finishing it, so as long as I read a couple of stories, I feel like I'll be good for November, and that's pretty much my only goal. And I have Between Song and Story, edited by Sheryl St. Germain and Margaret L. Whitford. This is for the challenge to read a book with poetry and read a collection of essays. This is both poetry and essays. It is lyric essays, which are sort of, if nonfiction was poetry, it would be called a lyric essay. I really wanted there to be a challenge to read a lyric essay, but I also didn't really want to explain what a lyric essay was 30 different times. So I just suggested poetry instead, because lyric essay does fall under poetry, I think. This is another one that I don't plan on finishing, and I will actually be very shocked if I do finish it this month. It's quite a dense book because most of the essays are very poetry-like and there's so much to unpack. It is tabbed slightly. I got this for a course in college, but we didn't read all of them, we just read a few select essays. And I really want to read more of them because some of them are really quite beautiful. Not all of them. Some of them are hit or miss because a lot of them are very experimental, as lyric essay tends to be. But I'm really looking forward to reading at least a few of these for this challenge. And my final nonfiction book is My War Gone By, I Miss It So by Anthony Loyd. This is the only one I specifically picked for a challenge, and the challenge was read a book about a war or conflict other than World War II. And other than World War II is in all caps, and I believe this was somewhat directed at me and I feel very attacked. But I do have plenty of books on my shelf that are not about World War II, even though one of the books I'm reading this month is. This is about the killing fields in Bosnia. I believe Anthony Loyd is a British journalist, although I'm not quite sure on that. He comes from a military family, and he was in British military service for a while. I don't know much about the British military, but this is about his experience in the killing fields of Bosnia. It looks really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to reading it, because I know very little about Bosnia. Hopefully I will learn something. Now I'm going to very quickly go through the fiction that I plan to read in November. A lot of this is very short, a lot of YA or middle grade contemporary that I think will be very quick and easy reads to sort of give my brain a break and something light to enjoy in between the heavier nonfiction books. And some of these I'm really looking forward to. The first is I Never Promised You a Rose Garden by Joanne Greenberg. I believe this is about a girl with schizophrenia. It's a young adult contemporary novel, and I've read this before, but I haven't read it in several years. And I found this copy at a thrift store, and ever since I found it, I've been really excited to read this again, because I do remember really loving this book, even if I don't remember much about it. Next is Every Soul a Star by Wendy Mass. Wendy Mass is the author of A Mango-Shaped Space, which is one of my favorite middle grade books, so I'm really hoping I'm going to enjoy this. I really know very little about it other than I think it has to do with a couple of 12 or 13-year-olds who are camping, and I'm really looking forward to get to it. And I have In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. This is a thriller, and I'm usually pretty quick about getting through thrillers, and it's a fairly short thriller at that. I've heard so many amazing things about this, and I'm really looking forward to trying some Ruth Ware and trying a thriller. I've been taking a break from thrillers since about June or July because I had some bad luck with them. But this is a very hyped one, so I'm hoping I'll enjoy it. And I have Love Maybe by Heather Hepler. This is another middle grade novel on Valentine's Day about a girl whose birthday is on Valentine's Day, but she hates the holiday and winds up having to go on a date, I believe, in order to help a friend. and it sounds just really cute and fluffy and sweet. I found it for cheap at a thrift store, so I'm hoping it'll be a fun read. Next, I have A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallaro. This I've heard so much about, and it sounds just like such a cute, fun read, and I really love Sherlock Holmes retellings. They're honestly so much fun to me. And this is just a contemporary YA that seems really cute and fun and mysterious and also kind of just like cutesy, I think, is the vibe I'm getting from it. But I could be wrong there. I'm really looking forward to starting this. I've been eyeballing it on my shelf, but I figured Nonfiction November was the perfect time for just a fun YA contemporary. The final book I have on this list is The Thief by Megan Wayland Turner. I'm going to be buddy reading this with cozy reader Kelly, and I'm really looking forward to it. I've honestly had this book on my shelf probably since middle school, maybe even elementary school. It's a fairly old book by BookTube standards, but it is a very popular middle grade series, and I've heard a lot of great things about it, so I just hope it's going to be really fun. And that's really all I want, is just a fun read from it. Those are all the books that I plan to read in November. Mostly nonfiction, with some other quick reads thrown in, and I don't think I'll get through all of them, but because of the way I structured this, I do think there's a solid chance I will get through a lot of them, if I'm in the right mood, which I hope I am. If you would like to learn more about Nonfiction November, check out my announcement video, which I will link down below, and I will also link videos of all the other hosts' announcements, so there will be Kylie A's video, and Justin from Triumphal Reads. I highly recommend you go check all of them out, because we're all looking forward to Nonfiction November so much, and it's going to be loads of fun. I would really love if all of you guys joined in. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys again soon. Bye!